Have you ever wondered why there are certain sins, certain sinful behaviors, certain bad habits, certain lifestyle choices or behavioral choices that we make from time to time? But God delivers us. Jesus delivers us from those things. And we go through a season in our life where it seems as if nothing, no amount of temptation, no matter how great the temptation is, nothing, and I mean nothing, is going to cause us to go back into our old sinful ways. Nothing. But then we go through another season of our life where it's like the least amount of temptation. I mean, it can even be something like a smell, and boom, all of a sudden we are back in our old sinful ways, back in bondage, back in our old lifestyle. What in the world is going on there? Has this ever happened to you? Do you understand what I'm talking about? I think there's a key to help us become a more fully devoted follower of Jesus, a more faithful follower of Jesus, a more victorious Christian when we come to understand just what it is that Jesus wants to do in our life. You see, he just doesn't want to save, heal, deliver us from something, right? But he wants to save us to the uttermost. He wants to save, heal, and deliver us from our sinful lifestyles and behaviors and from those things that we're in bondage to. But he doesn't want to leave us in that state. He wants to save us, heal us, deliver us to something else. And that, I think, is the key. And that's what I want to talk about today. And so before we do that, my name is Hal Hall, and I am the founder and lead visionary of a ministry called the Great Awakening Church and Network. We're located in the greater Memphis area and just across the state line in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And if you want to know more about our ministry, I'd be more than glad to get that information to you. Just send me a message. You can find me on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. I am Preacher Hal on Instagram. And we also have a Great Awakening Network Instagram page. And so I encourage you to follow those. I put daily content there. And also on YouTube, I'm Pastor Hal Hall on YouTube. And so if you like this video, like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell, and that will alert you when a new video is uploaded. And I try to put out new content at least once a week on YouTube, a new video once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. Now, I've got one rule about making comments on any of my social media content, and that is this. There is no room for hate, no hate allowed on any of my social media platforms. Disagreement is fine. I even let some snarkiness slide every now and then, but there is absolutely no room for hate. As soon as I'm alerted to that, it will be deleted, and unfortunately, I'll have to ban you from my social media platforms, and I don't like doing that, but that's the way it is. So let's get into this content. We all have experienced from time to time sins, sinful choices, sinful bad habits, things like that, that we, it seems as if we get delivered from those things, we get saved from them, but man, and we go through a season, a time, and it may be a long time. I mean, it may be months or it may be years, where those things are not even a temptation anymore. But man, we'll go through another season and boom, it doesn't matter. It's the least amount of temptation, and boom, we're right back into it as if we never missed a beat. So what's going on? What can help us? Well, there are all kinds of accounts in the life and ministry of Jesus that I think can help us in this regard, where Jesus saves, delivers, heals somebody from something, and then he saves and doesn't leave them in that state, and saves and delivers them to something else. And that is the key. Now, I've chosen 4, and I could have chosen 4 others, but these are the 4 I've chosen. And so maybe in your time with the Lord this week that you can search out the scriptures, search out the ministry of Jesus, and find 4 others that, or more than that, that can also be applied in the same way. So the first story, the first account that I want to talk about is the Gerasene demoniac. Now, this is an extreme case, because this Gerasene demoniac, he had been, to give you a synopsis of the account here. So this Gerasene demoniac, this is in Luke chapter 8. He had been tormented by demons, possessed by demons for a very long time. So much so he didn't live in town. He lived among the tombs. He couldn't even wear any clothes. Couldn't keep clothes on him. And the townspeople, they tried to bind him, with chains and so forth to restrain him. But this is a supernatural thing. This is not a mental health issue. This is true demonic oppression, possession. It's supernatural because he breaks those chains. He uses supernatural strength because of that. So Jesus walks into his situation. And so things are about to change. Every time Jesus walks into a situation, things change. So Jesus walks in there, and the demons recognize who Jesus is. We know who you are, Jesus of Nazareth, and they plead with him not to cast them into the abyss, right? And so Jesus asks what their name is, and they say Legion, for we are many. So this is not just one man with one demon. He's got a lot of demons in his life. And so Jesus casts them out, and he casts them into a herd of swine, a herd of pigs. They run down the hill and they're drowned. So the man's set free. He's delivered. And not only is he delivered, he's completely delivered because the demons have drowned. They're gone. They're no more. They are drowned and done for. But the man, Jesus doesn't leave him in that state, right? Because if he would have, he would have been in that graveyard and among the tombs, just naked without anything whatsoever. But Jesus doesn't leave him in that state. So what happens? So Jesus, the next time we see this man and Jesus, he's sitting at the feet of Jesus, and he's clothed and in his right mind, right? And the people are amazed, and they're even fearful when they see that. So here's the key. Jesus just didn't deliver this guy, but he saved him to something else. He became a follower of Jesus. He was clothed in his right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus. What is it that can help us overcome and not give in to those temptations and sin again, or go through those seasons of our life? It's being clothed in our right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus. How do we sit at the feet of Jesus today? How do we do that? Well, we do that by reading the stories of Jesus, by reading about his teaching, the accounts of his ministry, about the healing miracles, the supernatural things, about his teachings, the Sermon on the Mount. I love the teachings where Jesus is teaching his disciples in the upper room just before he's taken away and goes to the Garden of Gethsemane on that Thursday before Good Friday. Some profound teaching there. And so when we apply that teaching and we read that teaching, we are sitting at the feet of Jesus. But that's not all. We have to read it personally. We have to read it. We have to pray as we read. And we pray before we read. We pray while we read. Lord, what is it that you're trying to say to me today? Lord, give me an understanding so that I can understand what it is that this difficult passage or this difficult story. What is it what lesson are you trying to teach me today? How can I apply this to my life? How can I be a more faithful follower of yours by this teaching that I have read today? That's how we sit at the feet of Jesus, and that's how we are clothed in our right mind after we have been delivered from some kind of sin, temptation, whatever the case may be, sinful lifestyle, demonic oppression. So that's one account. Now let's go to another account, and this is a totally different account, totally different situation, totally different, totally two different people. And different situations. And you'll recognize the man that I'm about to talk about. And he is Zacchaeus, right? You know Zacchaeus from the story that we used to sing, for the song we used to sing about Zacchaeus when we were in Vacation Bible School as kids. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in the sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. So we know the story of Zacchaeus, but what really do we know about Zacchaeus? Well, he was short, which really has less to do with the story than anything else. But we know that he was a Jew, where it says he too is the son of Abraham. So he was a Jew. He was one of them, one of Jesus and his followers and the people in the town, but he was a tax collector. What do we know about tax collectors back then? Well, tax collectors, they were Jews who worked for Rome. So that meant he was a traitor to his people. And he was also a cheat. So tax collectors were traitors and cheats. They were sinners. Sinners. Now Matthew, the disciple Matthew, was also a tax collector. And he was seen as a traitor and a cheat as well. In fact, if you've seen The Chosen, the series The Chosen, I love how they portray Matthew in there because he was a tax collector, and and the tension between Peter, the disciple Peter, and Matthew, I think is a real tension that was there 2,000 years ago. I think that tension was real, and I love the way The Chosen brings that out. And so Zacchaeus, there was a tension, a huge, big tension, where he lived and where, and because of his position, his job, his occupation, he was seen as a traitor and a cheat. But Jesus walked into a situation. What happens when Jesus walks into our situation? Things begin to change. Just like the Gerasene demoniac, things change. In Zacchaeus' situation, things are about to change. Jesus walks into town. Zacchaeus gets word of it, and so he wants to get a better view of Jesus, so he climbs up a tree. And so Jesus zeroes in on Zacchaeus. Now, I want to bring out the last verse in this little pericope here. It says in Luke 19:10, it says that the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost. For many years now, I've said this is the mission statement of Jesus. He has come to seek and to save that which is lost. So Zacchaeus, I mean, even though he was a son of Abraham, he was a Jew, he was a traitor and a cheat, he was a sinner, just as we all are sinners. And in some way, there's a little Zacchaeus in each one of us, because as followers of Jesus, if you are a follower of Jesus, there are ways in which we betray Jesus, in which we are traitors and cheats as well. In which we are all sinners. But because he was a son of Abraham, because he was a child of God, that meant he was worthy of having a relationship with Jesus, and Jesus zeroed in on him, and sometimes Jesus zeroes in on us. And so he develops this relationship with him. And so here's the key, I think, in this story, is that when Jesus walks into our situation, no matter what it is, no matter what kind of sin that we're involved in, immediately what will happen is this, and this is what I believe happened to Zacchaeus. He immediately felt conviction for his sin. Now, Jesus didn't say, all right, here's what you need to be saved. Here's what you need to do to follow me. Do this, this, and this. All right, if you do this, and then this, and this, then you can be saved. Then you can be forgiven. Then you can be delivered. Then you can be healed. Right? That's not what he said at all. But what Zacchaeus says, after just being in the presence of Jesus, and here's what I think happens, is when we are in the very presence of Jesus, we're sitting at the feet of Jesus, we experience conviction for sin. And it's not that Jesus tells us, here's what you got to do. It's like, man, I want to get rid of any kind of sin or sinful lifestyle or anything that's going to cause a problem between me and Jesus. If there is something in my life that is offending him, I want that to be done away with. I want it gone. I don't want that to be in my life anymore. And so that's what Zacchaeus did. And he says, he was a rich guy, right? He lived not really even though he was in the community, he wasn't a part of the community. He was one of these guys that was. He probably lived in a nicer house than anybody else and wore nicer clothes than anybody else. And so he was in the community, but really wasn't a part of the community. And so he was living off of how he had cheated other people. And he says, all right, I am going to give half of what I have to the poor. I mean, he wasn't even giving a tithe or a 10%. He says, I'm giving half away. And if I've cheated, that's not all. If I've cheated, anybody of anything, then I am not just going to give back one-fold, not two-fold, not three-fold, but four-fold. I'm giving back. Man, that is repentance. Giving half your stuff away to the poor and giving back fourfold for those that you have done wrong, that is repentance. And so Jesus just doesn't save, deliver, heal Zacchaeus, but just being in his presence caused Zacchaeus that conviction, and it caused change in his life. He sat at the feet of Jesus, and he learned from him, and he became a follower of Jesus that way. All right, let's move to another one. We're going to move to John's Gospel now. This is John chapter 4, which is the woman at the well. The woman at the well is the Samaritan woman, the story of the Samaritan woman. And so you know how Jews and Samaritans don't get along. There was a feud going on that goes way back. That's another story, another message, another sermon. So instead of avoiding Samaria like so many did in that day, they would cross the Jordan River, go to the other side, make their journey twice as long to skip Samaria because they just didn't want to deal with them or have anything to do with them. But Jesus zeroes in on this Samaritan woman, like he zeroed in on the Gerasene demoniac, like he zeroed in on Zacchaeus. He zeroes in on the Samaritan woman. He goes right smack dab in the middle of Samaria so that he could have this conversation with the Samaritan woman. What is Jesus' personal mission statement? To seek and to save that which is lost. He just doesn't want to save, deliver, heal us from something, but he wants to save, deliver us, heal us to something else. And this same thing is about to happen to this Samaritan woman. Now, this woman was, what we know about her, she was a woman. She came to the Sycharian well, this well at Jacob's well. Now, it's noontime. Nobody's there except Jesus. Why isn't anybody there? Because that's not the well everybody went to. Everybody else went to the well in town. That's where the crowd was. That's where people hung out at the well, but not this well. This was outside of town. And she came because maybe she was the talk of the town. Because we know something about her lifestyle, right? She'd been married 5 times, and the man she's living with now wasn't her husband. So she had a problem with that. Maybe sexual immorality, I don't know. And so that's not what Jesus pointed out. That wasn't the first thing Jesus pointed out in her life, though. The first thing that they talked about wasn't her sin. But you know what it was? It's about water. Water was the first thing that they talked about, and water became a major theme of their conversation. So our ice maker is not working very well at our house. I think there's something wrong with the sensor. It's not dumping the ice into the tray like it should, into the bin like it should. So I'll have to go and manually do that. Now, I drink water all day long, and so I drink coffee all morning, and then I drink water all the rest of the day. And so when I don't have ice, I don't drink as much water, and I can tell I'm not drinking as much water since our ice maker has been acting up. I can tell I'm not drinking water. My mouth is a little more dry. My skin seems to be a little more dry. Its elasticity is not what it normally is, and I can also tell the bags under my eyes, the circles under my eyes, seem to be a little more pronounced as well. So what does water do? Water is life-giving, right? It is the fountain of youth, so to speak. And so it is life-giving. And that's the very first thing that they talked about. Jesus walks into this woman's situation, and things are about to change. And the conversation didn't begin with her sin. It began with talking about water. Now, I've preached on this many times, and one particular Sunday that I preached on this a number of years ago, I titled the message, "The Anatomy of a Conversion," because I think you can go step by step and see what happened in this woman's life and see how she went from being far from God to being a fully sold out witness for Jesus, because that's what happened. So, long story short, Jesus delivered her from her lifestyle. He did point out her sin. That came later in the story. So he did deal with her sin, because Jesus does want to deal with our sin. But the conversation even went from dealing with her sin to dealing with the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Oh, I want to be, our people say the true worshipers shall worship here, but you people say you should worship there. And Jesus says the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. And then she realizes who it is that is speaking to her, that this is the Messiah, this is the Christ. And she goes back to town and she tells other people about Jesus. Now you think about that. You think about who this woman is. And she goes into town and tells the men of the city that the Messiah is here, the Christ is here. And she becomes that witness for Jesus. And then they invite Jesus to stay. And now not only is the woman sitting at the feet of Jesus, but the whole town is sitting at the feet of Jesus. And they literally say this. They literally say, all right, it is not just now on the basis of what you say about this man. Now we know for ourselves, because we have been in his presence. We have heard his teaching. We too have sat at the feet of Jesus. You see, I think what happens in evangelism is this. We tell people about Jesus and we want them saved right then, right there. And boom, they might pray a prayer or something, get them to pray the sinner's prayer. But then we leave them, and then they fall right back into the same old way, their same old sinful ways. But what happens here, Jesus just doesn't change this one lady. He changes the entire community. And so he walks into this lady's life. He walks into the life of this community, this entire city, and they are changed. They all sit at the feet of Jesus. And so that's, I think, what happens to you and I. Not only do we need to be changed, but we can also bring Jesus to other people and lead them not just to salvation, but lead them to sitting at the feet of Jesus and their whole life be changed as well. So there's another example. There's tons of other examples, but that's one more example. But I want to lead you into one more example, one more account in the life and ministry of Jesus. And it's also in John's Gospel. So we talked about two men. We're going to talk about two women. And so I want to talk about the woman caught in adultery. And this is in John chapter 8. So you know the story of Jesus and the woman caught in the adultery. So what happens is the religious leaders, the Pharisees, and so forth, the scribes and Pharisees, they're trying to trap Jesus. They're trying to get him in some kind of religious controversy. And so they find a woman caught, and they find a woman who's caught in the middle of adultery. She's committing adultery. They bring her out, throw her in front of Jesus and say, and make the declaration, teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. So I wonder what that looked like when they walked in on this adulterous act, and what, how did they get in? How did they know this was happening, right? And so they jerk her out of bed, and as she's having relations with another man. I mean, just all kinds of messed up right there. And they say, now Moses in the law commanded us that she should be stoned. But what say you? So Jesus, I mean, I like this, what it says. It says this. He just stoops down, starts writing in the fingers as though he didn't even hear them. Like it was so unimportant to him, as though they didn't hear him. And then he just raises up and says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So here's the thing. Jesus steps into this woman's situation, right? And he was really thrust into this situation. He didn't step into it. He was thrust into this situation. So, but her life was changed, as well as probably some of the other people in the crowd. Their life was changed as well. Some of them probably were more hardened against him, but others, maybe their life was softened and changed. And maybe their heart of stone was removed and they were given a heart of flesh. I don't know. That may be a little eisegesis in there, but I don't know. I tend to think that could be the case. All right, so let me get back into this story. So Jesus stoops down and says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So this woman, Jesus is delivering her from her sinful lifestyle and also from men with evil intentions. So he is delivering her a complete deliverance from her lifestyle as well as men with evil intentions. And maybe she is a woman who had been used and abused her whole life. Jesus is delivering her from that. Okay? And so after Jesus makes his statement, they all drop their stones, youngest to oldest to youngest. Interesting. And then Jesus says to her, where are those that condemn you? They're all gone. And he says, neither do I condemn you. Now listen to what he says. Go and sin no more. Now, right after he says that, Jesus spoke to them, those that were left, and he says one of those I am statements. I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. He is inviting people to follow him. Why? Because he is the light of the world. He is the light of life. See, if we follow anything else, it will lead us into darkness. It will lead us into temptation. It will lead us into sin. Jesus says, go and sin no more. Now follow me. I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Follow Jesus. Follow him. Now, I think if we follow what Jesus says in all of those accounts, and all the other accounts too, because he saves, heals, delivers us from those things, but he doesn't leave us in that state. He wants to do more. He wants to transform us. He wants us to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from him. Why? Because he is the living water. He is the life-giving force that we need. He is the light of the world. And if we follow him, we won't walk in darkness, but we will have the light of light, because that's who Jesus is. And that's what he can do in our life. He can deliver us. He can set us free. He can save us to the uttermost. But we have to sit at the feet of Jesus. If you want to be delivered, if you want to be set free, if you don't want to go back into temptation and sin, if you don't want to fall back into those lifestyles, sit at the feet of Jesus. Do it every day. And do it while you're praying. And ask God what it is that he's saying to you and how you can apply his teachings to your life. Because he is the light of the world. He is the living water. He is the one that gives you life. And he is the one that will keep you from temptation and sin and help you become the most faithful follower of Jesus you can be. God bless you. I hope this word was an encouragement to you, and you have a great rest of the day.